Okay, my name is Radu Ziemba. I'm one of the co-founders of Kappsule Studios. I will tell you a little about me before Kappsule Studios. I was working with the music industry before. I was doing video editing for bands in Romania. I worked with Vița de Vie most of the time. And one of my biggest passions at that point was like maybe everybody here playing games. So uh, in 2015, I've met my partners George and Mihai, and we decided to start the company. Now we are at 10 employees. We have a good team. We did 50 games before trying to make more serious games. Our first serious game was 2048 Battle, which is an online multiplayer game based on 2048. Then we did educational games for a company in America. Then we released Wrestling Dunkers, which were really successful on mobile. And now our main focus is Mad CEO and Battle Golf Online, which was recently released on the App Store. So now let's see our strategy and what we developed. I think everybody here is familiar with skill trees in games, like in League of Legends and all the games you can put skills. Okay, what I have in mind about this business, I see it as a skill tree. So basically you can make games and put them inside skill trees. And I've named 3 important skill trees you can choose as an indie developer. Okay, the first one is called self-publishing. It's when you want to release the game without with you doing everything. You are doing the marketing, you are doing all the things that an indie developer is afraid of at start. So you have to do all the media, you have to do everything that really sucks at start. So our main focus when we did self-publishing was just to create the game, so we didn't really know about marketing and all the hard stuff. Another interesting tree I found was co-developing, and the first time I mentioned the co-developing, I saw on Congregate, the web portal for games, there was a combination between Zombidle, which is an idle clicker, and Burrito Bison. And they've combined their IP really successfully and created a really cool game. And now, after 8 months after I said this, I've seen that Mario and Ubisoft are making together the Mario Bunnies, and Assassin's Creed is getting Final Fantasy work and mix. So this thing is actually working for bigger companies also, but also for the lower ones. And this usually ends up in split revenue share and stuff like that. And the last tree is, of course, working with a publisher. A publisher, of course, is the team that will help you sell your game. And they will do all the marketing for you, just focus on the game. Usually it's a deal, it's 50-50 with the publisher. Some take more, some take less. It really depends on what you can manage to get from that deal. So now I'm gonna start populating the indie game tree and to see how our experience managed to work. Okay, so our first game was 2048 Battle, which was an online version of the famous game 2048. So what we did in this game was make it player versus player. So in real time, you were seeing an opponent and you were racing to 2048. So every time you would see what the opponent was doing, and you had skills and boosters and stuff like that. You also had a life system similar to Candy Crush. And another smart thing we did that didn't end up like being smart in the end, we made a really sophisticated AI, artificial intelligence, that if a player would disconnect, the AI would come inside the game and finish the game. So literally nobody was getting disconnects and everybody was finishing the game. And we stayed like 6 months on that AI because we wanted to make it really, really perfect. So it was even self-adapting. So if you were playing really, really good, I would start to play even better and better and be competitive with you. Yeah. What we did wrong, and there's many things, we didn't focus on visibility. Because at that point, when we released the game, there were 4,000 games named 2048. So everybody that would come inside the store and try to search for 2048, nobody would find the game at all because it was really, really down the list. So we couldn't get any players inside the multiplayer version. We also had a very late delivery on this game. the whole trend disappeared by the time we launched the game. And one of our other big mistakes was that the original game had a multiplayer game and we didn't check for it. So we didn't have something new. And we didn't focus on marketing. Yeah, so that was the story for 2048. Our next game was Mad CEO, where we tried to shift a little the focus. So Mad CEO is an idle clicker game where you are the CEO and you put people to work. They will start making money. At some point, you can sell the company and start all over making more money in the next run, customizing the CEO's office. You can also play the stock market. You can do a lot of cool stuff. You also have an email system with emails that come and you have to take decisions for the workers. It's really, really cool. What we did with this one was that we changed the idea. We built it for mobile, but when we was to press the release button for the game, we said, okay, we are doing the same mistake as 2048 Battle. So what can we do in different this time? So we decided to launch the game on Congregate, the web portal. So we started to port the game to web, and it took us 2 months, and we launched it on Congregate. So when we launched on Congregate, I remember the first comment that we had for the game. It had like 200 upvotes, and it was like no content, no game, no clicking, nothing. So we started off with that, and we started listening to everybody's feedback. So our main focus after the release was to listen to everybody's feedback and implement it and start getting the game as players would want the game, as opposed to making the game as we wanted. And that was a really, really important thing, because when we launched it on Congregate, it had a 3.2 rating. And after 3 months of constant changes and feedback, and we talked with everybody, we were featured on the Congregate page because the game went to a 4.0 rating. So most of the time what we did, because Congregate has a really smart system, and I really encourage people to launch on Congregate, is that you have a chat system. And if you stay in the chat systems, you will see that players will leave valuable feedback there. And you can do even something better as a developer, and you can start talking with your players. So that's what we did. And yeah, you can't actually see the comments, but what I did was that in Congregate, there's a room of a chat with maximum 200 players. So we had at some point 5 rooms full of 200 players. So I made 5 different Congregate accounts, and I had each one in a different tab in the chat system just to check that I didn't miss any information there. So I ended up with a spreadsheet with 10,000 lines of feedback from the players. So imagine how much content and ideas you have there, and you see that 500 of them are the same and from different users, and you can use that to implement and make the game better. And we did that, and it worked out really well. We were acclaimed as the best developers on Congregate because we are the only ones that were talking to our players, and everybody loved us really much there, and it was really valuable for us because after this we had a really great game and we could move on and work with a publisher, which was what we had in mind at the at the start of the game. So we didn't actually publish right now the game. The game took another change, and we moved it to Miniclip to see if the stats will differ, like the retention and all that. And we had a good game that went to a really great one on Congregate, and when we moved the great one on Miniclip, the stats were fantastic. I actually had a talk before sending the presentation with Miniclip, and they're saying this game acts like this. Every other game goes with an up high and then they will fall, and this game does up fall and up, 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 and even more. So they said only 2 games did that on Miniclip, Agario and 8-Pool, which are the 2 most successful Miniclip games at this point. So we are talking with Miniclip, and we will have a soft launch with them. So we will go in the publisher zone with Mad CEO. Now, while developing Mad CEO, we also worked with a friend that we met on a forum of a tool. It's called Stencil. It's really fast for developing games with code blocks. If you're not a really good programmer, we did like tons of games in that tool, and it went really well with us because we've met Colin, which is our partner and co-developer from Sweden, and we did these games: Battle Golf, Wrestling, and Dunkers. These games, and also Battle Golf Online, which I'll get there soon. Yeah, these games had a really cool particularity. They were all featured by Apple. So in this deal, what we said with Colin for the first game is that we will do the Android part of the game and you will do the iOS part of the game. And he got a really good traction of being a cool indie, and Apple loved him so much. So we got featured on all these games, and we've seen what a feature would mean for an indie developer. So the first one, the Battle Golf, had 600K. Then Wrestling went to 1.2 million, and Dunkers went even further because it got also a banner and had 2.3 million downloads. And on Android, we didn't get any feature because Google doesn't really love the same way Apple does on indie developers. So that's all organic for Android. So this is Battle Golf Online, which we released last week. I've sent a presentation just after I took this screenshot because I wanted to show how well it did. It was a really crazy week for this game because we knew that we will have a feature for it, but we didn't knew what other games will be released in the market. So we had our competitors, Angry Birds, and in the US also Miniclip, Congregate, Gameloft, and Star Wars from EA were thrown. So it had a small impact on the downloads, but it also reached 1 million downloads. Yeah, so Apple feature is the biggest visibility you can get from the App Store. So I've started to compile a list of things that we did together with Colin to increase your chance of getting an Apple feature. And I came up with a plan we will respect for every launch right now. So the most important one is to have a really cool game. Your game has to be unique. You don't have to copy a game and expect it will hit an Apple feature. Your graphics must be polished. Everything must be in shape. Everything has to be really set up. So you will have the best game possible when you approach Apple. The next step was to try to get it covered in the media sites. We approached Touch Arcade, we approached Pocket Gamer. They wanted to talk about the game. They made an article. It really helps because Apple for sure checks for games and upcoming games on these websites. They really care about what the media says about the games. Another important thing is showcasing your game. What we did before that, we made a forum post on Touch Arcade, asked people to come to a private beta and try the game with us. So every game was tested with players, and players started to spread the word around. And we had really good feedback again and traction, and we knew the game was in shape and ready for a release. The next thing is be social. We always approached Twitter. We always did Facebook. We had pages for the games. If you can, you should have a website for the game. It really works out. And the most big mistake that developers make when they try to release a game is that they upload it and press release before actually trying to contact Apple. I don't know if you know that there is on the Apple website, there's a place for indie developers to throw out an email to Apple asking for a feature. So that's a thing. You can ask for a feature. And usually you should do that 3 weeks before launching, planning to actually release the game. Because it will give Apple time to check, and they will actually respond. If you launch the game now, you won't get featured because all the games are in place. But if you launch it 1 month later, we have a spot available for the featuring. So that's how it goes. You have to be in contact and try to get it in contact. But when you approach Apple, you have to have all the other things ready. So it's a step by step, and the release will have a possible Apple feature, because in some cases, if you miss something, and the most important one is being the game should be good, you will miss the Apple feature. And the game will be really hard to monetize. Yeah, and let's see if I can get this to play. Yeah, this is from the first game, from Battle Golf. This came out really unexpected for us because we didn't plan for it. We didn't approach PewDiePie. We didn't do anything for that. And he picked the game because we had an interesting feature that somebody called it innovative, a local multiplayer. So he and his girlfriend could play the game on the same tablet and have a lot of fun. And we kept this thing in the new game, and we have like 20% of the players are playing together from home with their parents, with their friends, and they have a lot of fun. So this is a thing that Apple really likes. And at some point, we got featured in the local multiplayer area. So we got another boost in downloads because we had this local multiplayer. Yeah. So, and this, as it may seem the biggest thing to get downloads to your game, wasn't as successful as an Apple feature. It got like 20% of the downloads that the Apple feature got us. We went further the line, and now we are working with the publisher closely and doing something different. We are working with the publisher from the start of the game, the start of development. We created 2 games that weren't released because they didn't hit some benchmarks for retention. We were aiming for really high retention, over 60%, which is sky high, and the day 7 should be around 30%. But we are working with them closely. Those are really fast prototypes, and if we hit one game in those benchmarks, we can release with them, and they will do the marketing and bring users in, and it will work really well because they will take care of the marketing for us. Yeah, and Battle Golf Online, like I said, it was featured just the other week. It did really well. It got 1 million players already, and it's really fun. You should try it. It's multiplayer, and that's about it. And I'm looking for questions now. Thank you. There.
So you got over $1 million, but how does the revenue look like? How much money did you make with the gold game?
That's a really tricky question. What would you expect from a feature like that? How much per day? I'm asking you, and I will answer with my version.
From $1 million, I don't know, I would expect at least $100,000.
Not there yet. But the thing is, it depends on a lot of stuff, really. It depends on your monetization. It depends on a lot of factors. What we did with these games, we don't really focus on in-app purchases. They're really casual games. So our in-app purchase is the remove ads, in which we added a little bonus, a hat that would give you double your coins, and the value because it's a golden hat and you want to show off to the other player. So it wasn't the focus for this game. For Mad CEO, we know the lifetime buyers and all that, and we know what to expect from 1 million players. And here, there's another factor. You have ads at the end. It depends if you show one ad at 5 rounds, one ad at 3 rounds, one ad at 1 round. And it affects other things also. It affects your daily active users. It will affect anything. So what we did, we didn't really go full mad on the ads. So we had less ads and keep the players there. And now we are adding updates, and with those updates we are trying to monetize it. Even though the boost is good, we will try to go in an area where user acquisition will work for us. But it really depends. We did a test, and you could get double the revenue if you show the ads twice as fast. It's logical. So I will give you numbers in private. Okay. Other questions? There.
Hi, so I'm wondering if you use cross-promotion in your games, because some of them are very successful, some of them may become. Have you tackled this issue?
Yeah, we actually did our own system for cross-promotion. It worked well, but at the moment we implemented it in the first games, it was quite late, so we had a lot of players that left the game already. So I couldn't say if it works real well, but what you're doing now actually is that we are releasing Battle Golf on Miniclip also, and we can put the download on iOS and Android. So that is a cross promotion because Miniclip will drive a lot of traffic to the game, and we will see how much they will convert to mobile users. So we did that, but we promoted from the first game, but the first game doesn't have any more, a lot of players right now. So it didn't work out as intended, but for the mini clip release, we know it would work because it will have a lot of players and we'll probably see a 5 to 10% conversion to mobile users also, as expecting myself.
Hello. So how is the graphics affecting your user acquisition? I mean, from what I've seen, everything looks like the 90s.
And the 90s were good.
Yeah, pixel graphics work. I think that was another key factor for the Apple featuring, because the games seemed retro, and at that point Apple was featuring a lot of retro games. So we thought, okay, if we could do it and it will feel good, we also have the music in 8-bit, so it gave a unique feel because the games are, let's say, silly as gameplay. It's funny. If you play wrestling, for example, I bet you $5 that you will laugh in the first 5 minutes because it's funny as it is. If you would go for higher graphics, it would be more complex and it would lose that simplicity and fun element. So it didn't affect us at all. I think it was a really good decision. It went well. The upgraded version of Battlegrounds was done in flat design because we really love that style also, and it's simple and it keeps the feel and it gives a more cartoonish feel, which is something really good right now. But other games, we would still go back and do it in pixel because we really like that and it worked for us. So that's another thing that would work.
Are these titles, the one you talked about, the only ones you tried, or are there a lot of different titles that you tried and you're not talking about because they failed?
No, these are all of them. After I said we did 50 other titles before that. Those were really experiments because the 3 founders of Kappsule Studios, 2 of them didn't know programming and they were acting programmers. Me, myself, I was trying to learn programming using Stencil. So we used a code block engine and we tried to develop what we thought are games. And our first game was a reversed Flappy Bird. We had the tubes flying in waves of birds. And we tried all sorts of stuff to see how it... We didn't know nothing at that point. We were like, let's make games. It sounds good. If Flappy Bird could do it, we can do it also. Something like that. So it took us like 3 games like that. And then we found a niche that was really good for us. We did trivia games. And I think most of you watch TV series, and we did trivia games for all the series. We did Supernatural, Breaking Bad, we did all the cartoon ones, we did most of the TV series. So we got a lot of traction from the users because nobody had trivia games about TV series. And we were the only ones because we didn't know about IP infringements, which came out really quick for us. And we had Walking Dead knocking at our door and saying, you don't have the rights for the game. And that's another funny story because 2 weeks before getting an IP infringement from them, they made a contract with us to deliver them players in their Scopely game of Walking Dead. And I said to the guy from legal, okay, we don't have the IP for Walking Dead, but we're both making money. We are transferring 500 players every day to your game. Let's find a way for this to work. We can manage something. And he said, no, I'm from legal. I don't care about marketing. Close the game or we will have problems. And I said, okay, let's kill it. And we killed like all the trivias after that. And we started focusing on 2048. And every game you saw there was the next process. So all of them are there. Yeah, last one.
Hello, Radu. Okay, so my question to you is, it's a 2-part question, first of all. How much time do you stay in prototyping phase with your games? And when you're working with another publisher, are the KPIs and the retentions, like those are the numbers imposed by the publisher,
Yeah.
or are your numbers?
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Those are from it's a particularity for each publisher to have their own standards for what they want. These two, Balls versus Bricks and Trifold, we were implied from the publisher to try to develop them as fast as we could. The publisher said 3 days, but 3 days is not something really possible. So it took around 2 weeks for each prototype, and now we're getting even better at it because we are seeing how fast we could and where to improve. They're really smart, actually. The publishers say, keep on mechanic and don't add retention mechanisms. Keep the core gameplay, and if the core gameplay is good, if you add retention mechanisms to already good retention, you'll get a higher retention, and the game will be successful. So what we're trying to achieve here is to have the core gameplay that feels really good, and after that, we will see the retention and add mechanisms, customization and all that things, and ads and hints and all that crazy stuff you have to add after. Yeah.